welcome to the deep dive. So you came to us with this fascinating stack of sources, wanting to explore the really big story, right? Earth's origins, life popping up, human evolution, the whole thing.
That's the plan.
And our mission, basically, is to jump into these documents you send, pull out the key stuff, the big insights, the surprising facts, the aha moments.
Exactly. We want you to get a clear picture without feeling like you're drowning in information.
Yeah, make it clear, fascinating, not overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because we're covering some incredible timescales here.
Oh, immense. We're talking from, like, a cloud of cosmic dust forming a planet,
Right.
through the very first tiny life forms, life moving onto land, and then this incredible journey leading to us, to human civilization.
It's a story of just constant change, constant adaptation.
It really is.
Oh.
Right down to what makes us human.
Okay, let's dive in right at the very start. Setting the stage Earth's beginning according to your material.
Okay, so the sources kick things off about 4.5 billion years ago. That's when Earth formed.
4.5 billion. Wow.
Yeah. And it came from this huge spinning cloud of dust and gas out in space. A nebula, they call it.
So our whole world starting as just space dust.
Pretty much. Imagine that, just cosmic dust coalescing.
And it wasn't exactly a gentle start, was it?
Huh, no, far from it. The sources say initially Earth was incredibly hot, molten, really.
Right.
Over, well, vast amounts of time, the surface gradually cooled down, but the inside, the core, it's still extremely hot today.
How hot are we talking?
Your material puts the core temp at around 6,000 degrees Celsius.
6,000. Compared to water boiling at 100 C, that's just mind-blowing. Deep inside the planet.
It is. And that heat is still, active. The sources link it directly to volcanoes.
Okay.
That lava pouring out during eruptions, it's essentially coming from that super hot central part.
So this fiery, turbulent beginning eventually cooled down enough on the outside to become, well, home.
Precisely. The sources really emphasize that. This ancient planet, born from dust, hot inside. It's the stage, the home for all life that's ever been here.
Bacteria, us, animals, trees.
Everything.
Everything. So understanding its origins, its nature, it's fundamental. It shaped everything that came after.
Okay, planet formed, cooling down. But life wasn't immediate, right? The sources mention a big time gap.
A huge gap, yeah.
Yeah.
Life showed up much, much later. And the very first life mentioned in your material is incredibly simple stuff.
Like, what did it look like? Or maybe you couldn't even see it.
Couldn't see it with naked eye, no. The sources call it prokaryote bacteria. Appeared maybe 2.5 billion years ago.
2.5 billion. So 2 billion years after Earth formed, roughly.
Roughly, yeah. And these are just incredibly simple, single-celled things. The absolute, root of the tree of life.
And where did this first life get started?
In water. The sources are very clear on that. The oceans, presumably.
Okay.
Life originated in the water, moving on to land. That happened way later.
Speaking of early water life, your material mentions this really weird creature. Sounds like sci-fi.
You mean Opabenia.
That's the one. Yeah, found fossilized up in Canada. Lived a very long time ago, about 542 million years back.
Okay.
Pretty small, maybe 4 to 7 centimeters long, just kind of scuttled around on the seabed.
And the standout feature.
Well, according to the source, it had a mouth, obviously, but also 5 eyes.
5 eyes. Seriously. 5.
5 eyes. That's what the fossils show. Imagine that little guy looking around down there.
500 million years ago. It really makes you stop and think about how, alien early life could be.
It does. And Opabenia was doing its 5-eyed thing when life on land, it was just starting for plants. Maybe hadn't even really started for animals yet.
Right, because getting onto land wasn't just one event. The sources say it happened in stages.
Yeah, exactly. Phased. The material points out that plants made the jump first.
Plants before animals.
Yep. Also around that 542 million year mark during the Paleozoic era. So green stuff started spreading on the continents before creepy crawlies followed.
So plants, 542 million years ago. When did the first animals crawl out?
The sources put the first land animals things kind of like millipedes appearing later, around 420 million years ago. That was the Silurian era.
Okay, so let's recap. Bacteria in water, 2.5 billion years ago. Then Opabenia and land plants, around 542 million.
Yeah.
Then land animals, 420 million. And the sources make a point about humans in all this.
A very strong point. They emphasize that compared to all of that. Plants, animals, Humans, or man, as the sources often say, appeared much, much later.
Our story is just a very recent chapter.
Extremely recent in the grand scheme of things.
Which brings us to that chapter, the rise of man. Your sources describe us as, part of nature but unique. Where does that story kick off?
According to the material, man originated from a line of apes. Specifically, they point to a type of chimpanzee in Africa.
Okay, apes in Africa.
Yeah.
And the setting for this?
This gets going around 2.5 million years ago, and the backdrop was dramatic. The Great Ice Age, a time of intense global cold.
So these apes weren't just chilling, they were under pressure. They had to change.
Exactly. Major pressure. The sources talk about them undergoing physical changes, faces, teeth adapting to that extreme cold and having to eat different, maybe tougher, unfamiliar foods.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Survival means adapting. And what was a really key adaptation highlighted?
A huge one. They got used to walking on their 2 feet. Bipedalism.
Walking upright. That feels like a game changer, more than just physical.
Oh, absolutely. It freed up the hands, for one thing. The sources link this directly to that Ice Age climate. The intense cold, the cycles of freezing and slightly warmer periods mentioned in the material, It all pushed these changes.
Driving evolution.
Right. And this whole transformation from that ape ancestor towards humans is what the material labels human evolution.
Okay, so human evolution kicks off, say, 2.5 million years ago. African apes, Ice Age pressure, walking upright. Who are the early players named in your sources?
Well, they mention Australopithecus, described as the oldest ape showing a clear tendency towards becoming human. And they note evidence shows Australopithecus lived even further back, maybe 3.8 million years ago, and already walked on 2 feet.
Ah, so upright walking was happening even earlier. It wasn't just one moment, but a longer process.
Exactly. Shows deeper roots. And that ability, walking upright, gave them a huge advantage. Freed the hands, allowed early humans to do stuff other apes couldn't. Crucially, it let them start using tools.
And what did using tools mean back then? Not power drills, I assume.
No. The sources describe the very, very beginning as just picking up convenient stones, round ones, maybe from riverbeds.
Using what was available.
Right, using them for basic things like cracking open nuts to get the food inside, stuff like that. Simple but revolutionary.
Okay, from just using stones to actually making tools, who took that step?
The sources point to Homo habilis, literally means capable man or handyman.
Homo habilis, okay.
They were the first, according to this material, to actively make stone tools. Hitting one stone with another to chip off flakes, create sharp edges for cutting or scraping.
Deliberate crafting.
Yeah. The material puts Homo habilis living between about 2.3 and 1.4 million years ago, and it emphasizes that, all our modern sophisticated tools, the learning started right there.
Capable man laying the foundation. Amazing. What other massive breakthrough do the sources talk about?
Fire. The mastery of fire. Highlighted as another enormous leap.
Huge, obviously. Why was it so important, according to the sources?
Well, cooking food, for starters, made it easier to digest, maybe unlocked more nutrients.
Big advantage, but fire is more than just cooking.
Oh, yeah. Warmth, obviously. Protection from predators, maybe. Light. The sources mention it made life more comfortable, especially in colder times.
And interestingly.
Yes, the sources have this interesting note, suggesting this more comfortable life, maybe better health from cooked food and warmth, actually contributed to their bodies becoming, quote, more beautiful.
An aesthetic observation tied to survival tech. Did they have proof of this early fire use?
The sources mention evidence found in Israel, shows humans using fire, and it dates back 790,000 years.
Nearly 800,000 years ago.
Wow.
And which ancestor gets the credit for first using fire?
The material names Homo erectus as the one who first used fire. Now, here's where the dates in the source get interesting.
Oh, now so.
It states Homo erectus lived 1,800 million years ago.
Wait, 1,800 million? That's 1.8 billion. But the fire evidence was 790,000.
Yes. That's a massive discrepancy. 1.8 billion years ago is way, way before even complex life, let alone early humans. The fire date, 790,000 years ago, fits much better with Homo erectus in the general scientific consensus.
Okay, so the source material itself has that. A very large inconsistency in the dates for Homo erectus.
That's what's written here, yes. 1,800 million years ago for erectus living, 790,000 years ago for the fire evidence mentioned. We're just reporting what the documents say.
Fascinating how sources can contain those kinds of internal puzzles. Okay, so setting aside that specific date anomaly for erectus himself, we have tools, Fire. What about the brain?
Right. The sources explain the human brain was gradually developing, getting larger compared to an ape's brain over this long stretch.
Driven by...
Well, needing to think, invent tools, figure out fire, cooperate. All that cognitive demand spurred brain growth. And this caused the skull shape to change too, to make room.
Bigger brains, better tools, fire. This is paving the road to us.
It is. And the sources detail the next steps. They introduce Homo neanderthalensis, the Neanderthals.
Ah, the famous ones.
Yeah.
When were they around?
Described as living around 600,000 years ago, and the sources paint them as pretty developed.
What could they do?
They built houses, sometimes using large animal bones for structure. They ate cooked vegetables, confirming fire was standard practice, and they were good hunters.
So, increasing sophistication. A long process.
Yeah, the sources kind of summarize it by saying man developed these abilities over roughly 2 million years, and that leads eventually to Homo sapien.
Us. Modern humans.
Exactly. The material identifies Homo sapien as the type who discovered really sophisticated things. Language is mentioned.
Language, wow.
And the arts, dancing, music, painting are listed. This leap is placed around 100,000 years ago.
And Homo sapien is our direct ancestor line.
Unequivocally, the sources state clearly, Homo sapien is the closest relative to all of us today. We are Homo sapiens. We belong to that family.
It's just incredible tracing that path.
Yeah.
From apes adapting to the cold to beings creating art and using complex language. And your sources really stress the relevance of these ancient achievements today.
They really do. Explicitly state that these early discoveries, fire, cooking, building shelters, making tools, are still fundamentally important and useful for us right now.
Our whole lives are built on those foundations.
Totally. The sources even give examples like a finely made stone tool or mention finding a flute made from animal bone by Homo sapien maybe 30,000 years ago. Tangible links, you know.
Yeah, that flute. Amazing. Okay, this leads to another big idea in your material, cultural evolution. It's not just bodies changing, but how we lived.
Right. Cultural change or cultural evolution. It's about how lifestyles transformed over that, say, 2.5 million years. And tools are a big part of seeing that change.
Because they survive.
Yeah, stone tools last. So the sources explain we can find them across huge time spans and literally see how they changed shape, size, how well they worked. It's like a physical record of progress.
And the sources use these tools to break down cultural progress into 3 big stages.
They do. The Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic eras. The Stone Ages, basically.
Okay, let's start with the oldest. Paleolithic.
Yeah.
What was life like then?
Paleolithic life, according to the sources. People lived in small groups, maybe 20, 30 members, constantly on the move.
Nomadic.
Exactly. Roaming, hunting animals, gathering whatever wild plants they could find. That was life.
Any signs of culture beyond just survival?
Yeah, beginnings. The sources mention early funeral rites, specifically putting red ochre, a type of colored earth, on skeletons.
Interesting. Symbolic behavior.
Seems like it. And this even led to early trade, a barter system. Groups who didn't have ochre nearby would trade other things to get it.
Well, and population.
Low, the sources say. And towards the end of the Paleolithic, they mention the first hints of art, drawing pictures, making little figures, like a woman carved from bone is given as an example.
Okay. Then came the Mesolithic. Middle Stone Age. What changed?
The start time varied a bit by region, sources say, but generally between 20,000 and 18,000 years ago. Still hunting and gathering, but with better tech.
Like what?
Bows and arrows? That's a big one mentioned for hunting. Made it more efficient.
And did their lifestyle shift?
Yeah, significantly. They still moved around, but started staying in one place for longer stretches, not the constant roaming of the Paleolithic.
Semi-settled.
Kind of. Diet expanded to nuts, leaves, yams added more to the hunted meat. And because they stayed put longer, they built slightly better homes, simple huts from sticks and leaves.
A step towards settling down. Did art continue?
Yes, the sources mention more drawing, often on rock surfaces using different colors. You see artistic expression developing. Overall, the Mesolithic is presented as, well, more developed than the Paleolithic.
And that development seems to just explode in the next phase.
The Neolithic, New Stone Age, starts around 9,000 years ago. And yeah, this is where things really change. Several huge activities define this era.
The biggest being?
Agriculture. Farming. That's the most prominent activity highlighted.
Game changer.
Totally revolutionary. Instead of just finding food, people started actively growing it, cultivating crops. The sources list grains like wheat, barley, paddy, that's rice, and korakan.
Reliable food source. And what about animals?
Animal husbandry took off alongside farming. Taming animals, not just for meat, but milk, eggs, fur, hides. Like having a living pantry and toolkit right there.
Farming and herding. Any other big Neolithic inventions?
Iron. The sources say iron was discovered and used for the first time in this era.
Iron replaces stones.
Starts to, yeah.
Huh.
A huge leap for tools, stronger, more efficient. They mention a clay sickle used for harvesting grain, found in Israel from around 3000 BC that had an iron blade.
Better tools for farming. And there were people living now.
That Mesolithic trend of staying put longer, it's solidified into forming villages. The sources date the earliest villages to around 6000 BC. Houses still simple wattle and daub, or stick walls.
And with this more stable, farm-based life, did beliefs evolve too?
Seems so. The sources indicate organized religious activities started here. Worshipping gods, often specifically for protecting their crops and animals, shows how central farming had become.
Makes sense. Agriculture meant more food, surplus.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that had major social consequences, according to the sources. An abundance of food meant some people accumulated more wealth, more property than others.
Oh.
For the first time, the sources say you see a real division between rich and poor emerge.
The start of inequality.
And the rich became powerful, started clustering together. The sources link this directly to the beginnings of urban living, moving towards cities.
Wow. So farming didn't just change diet, it fundamentally restructured society. Inequality, power, cities, all rooted in the Neolithic.
The sources draw that line very clearly. Agriculture and animal husbandry were the bedrock that allowed civilizations to be built.
And looking back, climate played a role in making this possible.
Yes, the sources circle back to that. Around 12,000 years ago, the really harsh Ice Age cold finally eased up. We entered the warmer Holocene era, the one we're still in.
Warmer, wetter.
Warmer, yeah. Better conditions for plants to thrive, creating the environment where agriculture could actually develop and succeed.
And the sources pinpoint where some key crops first popped up.
They do. Maize, or corn, noted from central Mexico around 3000 BC. Wheat from the Mediterranean area, way back around 9000 BC. And paddy, rice, from China around 7000 BC. Shows it wasn't just one place, but happening independently.
So farming takes hold, provides more food, people settle down, and they have more free time.
That's another key point the sources make. Once you're not spending every waking moment hunting or gathering, you have leisure time, especially after the harvest is in.
And what do they do with that time?
Develop other things. The sources link this leisure directly to the flourishing of arts, painting, sculpture, music. Culture blossoms when survival isn't the only focus.
It all weaves together. Climate, farming, settlements, leisure, art, civilization.
It's a fantastic narrative thread in the sources. From that single-celled start in the water, life diversifies unbelievably. Birds, reptiles, fish, insects, mammals, everything spreading across the planet, all from one origin.
And within that huge story, there's our specific line.
Our line, yeah. From an ape ancestor, adapting, innovating over millions of years, becoming Homo sapien, the intelligent human.
The sources also mentioned the variations we see in people around the world today.
Briefly, yes. They note that while we're all one species, Homo sapien, there are obviously differences in, say, facial features between different regions.
And how do they explain that?
The material mentions classifications like Caucasoid, Negroid, Australoid, Mongoloid, older anthropological terms, and attributes these physical variations primarily to the different environments people lived in and adapted to over long periods. Environmental influence on appearance.
Understood. Wow. Okay, so from cosmic dust, billions of years ago, first life in the water, plants, then animals on land, early humans figuring out tools, fire. The agricultural revolution, villages, cities, art. It's just an incredible journey outlined in the material you brought.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? And seeing how those fundamental breakthroughs, fire, tools, farming, cooperation, still underpin our lives today, it connects us so deeply to those ancient peoples.
It absolutely does. Makes you see everyday things differently. So after this huge sweep through time, what's the final takeaway? What core message does the source material leave us with?
It ends on a, I think, quite powerful reflection. It basically says, look, all life on this planet, it came from a single source. It all belongs to nature.
Okay.
Therefore, every single living being has a right to live here safely.
A shared origin implies a shared right to exist.
Exactly. And the conclusion drawn from that.
What is it?
Hence, it's our duty, humans' duty, to love and protect nature, because it's the source of all life and it's our shared home.
That's a really profound concluding thought. A call for stewardship rooted in our shared biological history. Thank you for walking us through all of this based on the listener's material. It's been genuinely fascinating.